Jesus himself, he says, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I'll come in. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after they die. Jesus is the King who is able to do immeasurably more in your life than you can even hope or imagine right now. The question is, do you want him to be your King?
Oh man, what a morning. Hey, I am so excited about this. I am still, if you haven't been in the room, I'm still a little pumped from worship going, I wish we didn't stop, frankly. And so, sorry, but this is where we're at. So wherever you're joining us from, man, we're excited about it here. It is money talk. That's what we're doing. And some of you are like, here's what I know. Some of you have been inviting your friends for a year. And you're like, man, come on, you got to check out my church. And your friend finally said yes. And you're like, why? Like, you could have come on any other week and you showed up for the money series. And so but look at this. We're not afraid of this because, look, everybody's dealing with money. Everybody has to deal with money. You got to figure this thing out. And look, we think that if you see things from God's perspective, it would really help you. So you just hang in with us for this series and then get into kind of what we're going through the year. I'm just telling you, when you see things from Jesus' perspective, those who have been following him for a while, we believe that everything that Jesus touches is better. Everything he leads you toward is better. And so just kind of hang with us for a little bit. But I was reminded this week of a feeling that I love. It's the feeling of winning. Anybody prefer the feeling of winning? Come on. Okay. Now, so here watching the championship football game this past Monday was like, oh man, this is such good news. Now, I'm a Clemson fan. I grew up in South Carolina, born in Rock Hill, but I married a Georgia girl, and so we are for Georgia. so especially when they're in a championship. And so this week felt so good. It felt like, man, nothing's going wrong. And let's just be honest, there are probably some TCU fans in the house, and we don't want to be mean about it, okay? We're just pointing out a feeling. It feels better to win. That felt different than a week earlier as a Georgia fan. A week earlier, we were watching that game going like, who is this team? What is happening? And you felt like you were losing. And so here's the reality for me as we get into this talk about money. Most of the time, my guess is most of us feel like we're losing. When it comes to our money, when it comes to are we doing a good job? Are we kind of seeing things right? Are we accomplishing what we want? Am I getting where I want to be? Most of us probably feel more like, am I on the losing team? Like everything I try doesn't seem to work. Everything I'm pushing for doesn't seem to be happening for me. And so we feel like, man, we're on a losing team here. So here's what I hope happens today. I hope that you begin to reframe how you think about money. Because if you begin to see it the way that Jesus does, I guarantee you it's going to be helpful, and I guarantee you it's going to be a challenge. So what I want to do is I want to pray for us, and then we're going to jump in, and we're going to go after it, all right? Here we go. Let's pray together. Father, so thankful for your grace. So thankful that your word actually gives us instruction on how to think about money and what to do with it and how to be wise with it. Lord, help us to have eyes to see and ears to hear. Most of us, when we deal with hard topics like this, most of us want to stop listening. We want to get out. We don't want to deal with it. We would rather run from it, but we know it's better. It's better if we listen. It's better if we learn. It's better if we grow. It's better if we do these things together so that we could honor you and begin living the life that you have in mind for us. So for those of us who are new, meet us where we're at. If we got questions, Lord, provide answers for us. We pray in your name. Amen. Again, we're going to reorder our thinking about money. So if you got a Bible, go to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6. Man, I love this. This is a Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Sermon on the Mount. Listen to me. This sermon is the most impactful sermon in human history. Okay? This thing has lasted for generations, for thousands of years, and has radically shaped many cultures because of the power of these words that Jesus preaches in this sermon. So we're going to look at what he says about money from his message. Now, if you want to read the whole thing, you need to go back and read 5, 6, and 7, and I would encourage you, if you haven't, you need to read it. But we're going to jump right into the middle of it, okay? So if you don't have a Bible, we are going to put it up here. Matthew 6, starting in verse 19, here's what it says. It says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. Listen to this big part right here. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus is wanting you to pay attention to something. He wants you to know, where do you store your treasure? What are you prone to? What are you investing in? He's confronting the fact that we tend to spend a lot of our time and energy investing in things, frankly, won't last. Look, if I were to go to my closet, it would be a closet full of earthly treasures that moth have already started destroying. You know, every now and then I'll put on a t-shirt and there are like holes in it. I'm like, what happened? You know, it's because, I got a closet full of treasures. Earthly treasures. If I were to guess, you have a closet full, or a garage full, or a storage unit full of earthly treasures. The point being, these things that aren't going to last. These things have very little significance. Instead, he wants us to begin thinking about storing up treasures in heaven. Think about it in terms of according to how God sees things, according to his ways, okay? So you're thinking about, how do I invest in things that are significant, that are going to last, all right? And let me give you an example of how Lindsay and I changed the way we thought about money for a little bit. A couple years ago, coming up to Christmas time, we're just caught up in all of the, what are we going to get our kids? And now we got 4, so it's whatever times 4, and you're just like, this is obnoxious. Math is working the wrong way for us. And so, but we were convicted. We were like, we don't want to just buy more stuff. To be clear, we did buy our kids things for Christmas that year, all right? Just so you don't think I'm crazy, all right? But we were thinking, what if instead of just stuff, what if we invested in an experience? What if the gift was, we want our family to feel like I love being a family? That would be a good investment. What if we did an experience that in some way made my sons and my daughters become better men and women in the future? What if we invested that way? So what Jesus is saying is like, hey, you need to think higher. You need to think bigger thoughts about what's in your hands. He's asking that question. Where are you storing your treasure? He wants you to, because he knows this is what your heart's connected to. And when he says this is where your heart is, what he's saying is this is what you're committed to. This is where your attention is. Isn't that true? Your treasure tends to be the very thing that you're so committed to it. Your attention is on it. You're focused on it. And he's going, are you focused on the right thing? Are you storing up for yourselves treasure in heaven? Significant things that are going to last. Now, here's the second building block of this passage, all right? Jesus is going to keep building something for us. Verse 22, he says, the eye is the lamp of the body. If the eyes are healthy, the whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Here's what he's saying. How do you see? How do you see things? Do you have a healthy perspective, or do you have an unhealthy perspective? Here's what I know. You always find what you're looking for. If you're looking to buy a new truck, guess what you notice on the road? Trucks. If you're looking for new shoes, guess what you notice people wearing all the time? Oh, those are some sweet shoes. You know what I mean? Right? If you're looking for something wrong when you look in the mirror, guess what you're going to find? Something wrong. If you're looking for something wrong in your coworker, guess what you're going to find? Something wrong. We tend to find what we're looking for. And Jesus is saying it's because you need to know your eyes are either healthy or they're unhealthy. I heard someone say that one of the main differences between men and women is that when a guy looks in the mirror, he only sees what's right. Right? We're like squinting, we're like, that kind of looks like muscles. Yeah, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, we'll give ourselves all kind of, for me, it helps. I just take my glasses off. I'm like, wow, I got in shape real quick. Ladies, when you look in the mirror, you tend to only see what's wrong. Now, I don't know if that's actually true for everybody, okay? I don't think that's necessarily how we see it. But here's what I know. If your eyes are healthy, you see differently than if your eyes are unhealthy. So let's kind of drill down a little bit about what does Jesus mean when he says, are you have healthy eyes or unhealthy eyes? One commentary says it this way. The paneros eye, okay, that evil eye, that unhealthy eye of Near Eastern cultures, it's an eye that enviously covets what belongs to another. It's a greedy eye. On the other side, the healthy eye refers to what is seeing that is good. It's singular in its purpose. It's a generous eye. It means that there are some of us that walk around this world and the way that we see is how can I get, how can I keep, how can I take what is for me? Jesus is asking, do you have a greedy or generous perspective? Do you walk around going like, how do I get more? How do I get more? Or are you walking around going like, how can God use me to bless? How can I give to be a part of? How can I encourage? That we have these two different perspectives. One way of seeing leads to storing up treasures on earth, an unhealthy eye. But the other leads to a generous eye that enables us to store up treasures in heaven, keeps us focused on His kingdom, keeps us focused on things that are significant that are going to last. So here's the big question. How do you change the way you see things? If I have an unhealthy eye, how do I develop a healthy eye? This is the last piece of the passage. Look at this. Jesus says, no one can serve two masters. Either you're going to hate the one and love the other, you'll be devoted to the one or despise the other. Heads up. You cannot serve God and money. You can't have two masters. You can't simultaneously run in two different directions. You can't simultaneously chase the purpose of two opposing things. You can't serve God and money. One's got to make the decision. And frankly, many of us have been following earthly wisdom that was developed in a broken world, and we continue to feel like we're losing. We've been chasing those paths, and it doesn't seem to be working. We've had an unhealthy eye because the world said, look out for who? Number one. So we develop that perspective, and then we wonder why things aren't panning out the way that we really want. So the question is, look, is it working for you? Right now, wherever you're at, how you see things, how you're chasing things, whatever you're doing, is that working for you? Is it working for you to continue to invest in earthly stuff that fails, it breaks, it ruins, it disappoints? Somebody can take it from you. Is that working? Is it working for you to continue to see through the lens of greed, focusing on self-preservation? Heads up, I know this doesn't feel good to hear. I didn't feel good listening to it myself, okay? But we're all in on this. Is it working to live a life of self-preservation where you're constantly trying to make sure you're okay, making sure you get exactly what you want, regardless of the relationships you burn in the process, regardless of the future it's already cost you? Is this working for you? At some point, you got to be honest with yourself. You can't have two masters. Reminds me of one of my favorite scenes from Endgame, Marvel. Dr. Strange looks and he asks a very important question. Let me ask you this one time. What master do you serve? Does anybody remember this scene? Okay, yeah, this was like the funniest scene in the whole movie for me. And then he responds, what master do I serve? What do you mean? Am I supposed to say Jesus? Now, the first time I heard that, I was like, yes, that is precisely the question. Like, I cannot believe this made it to a movie. I'm like, that is the one question that needs to be answered above every other question. What master do you serve? Like, who's leading your life? Has money become your master? Do you feel somehow enslaved to stuff, enslaved to debt, enslaved to this, I have to drive a certain vehicle or I have to wear a certain outfit if I'm going to fit in or if I'm going to be accepted or if my identity is based on what I can wear or get for myself? Do you feel enslaved to that? You've got the wrong master and something's got to change. And here's why. This is the main point I want you to understand. We need to acknowledge this reality. God is the owner. He spoke and created the world, okay? God's the owner. We are simply managing what belongs to Him. Some of us walk in here today going like, this is my stuff. And it can be gone tomorrow. The moment you realize this truth, wait a second, God's the owner. I'm just simply managing what belongs to Him. With this perspective, we're going to flip the passage we just studied upside down. Here's what I want you to see. When you begin to see that God is in charge, this is what helps your eyes become healthy. This is what helps your eyes become generous. And when your eyes are generous, this is what helps you invest in His kingdom. Here's what He's saying. Who you serve determines how you see, which determines where you store your treasure. This is a reality for us. If you've got the wrong master, you're going to see the wrong way, you're going to invest in the wrong things. But if Jesus is in charge, man, you're going to see things from His perspective. You're going to put your heart on the right things, things that are going to last, things that are significant. So again, God's the owner. We're simply managing what belongs to Him. And guys, look, this is not new news. This showed up in Genesis chapter 1. Like when God created the world and gave humanity a job description, here's what He says. God blessed them, humanity. This is day 6, right? This is the first week. He said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. All right, so this is a threefold mandate. If you go, what's the job description of humanity? This is the threefold mandate found in Genesis chapter 1. Be fruitful and increase in number. Here's what that means. Get married and have babies. If you go to our kids' ministry right now, you realize we're doing a good job. Great job, people. Here's the second thing. Fill the earth. Fill the earth with what? Not more babies. That's in the first part. We're already there. We did that. Culture, beauty. God put something in you. Some of you, He made you to work at things at a level that is so good that you would fill the earth with houses and culture and structure and things that fight against injustice and things that make much of, what matters to God's heart. He put things in every one of you. He made you in His image, and so that whatever is of Him that's in you, you use that to fill the earth so that it reflects back on who He is. Man, you are made very distinctly to reflect His goodness. Now you just got to fill the earth with it. Fill the earth with who He is and what He's called you to in your life. That's what He's saying. And then subdue it. We don't like words like this in our culture. It sounds offensive. Other translations say have dominion, so that's even, worse. Here's what this means. Rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, over every living creature that moves on the ground. This is part of humanity's responsibility. You know what it's saying? God is saying, I want you to take care of my world like I would take care of that world. That's what subdue or have dominion means. I want you to care for this place like I would. That's what it means to be made in the image of God. So how do we, knowing that God's the owner and we're just managing what belongs to Him, how do we do this well? There are 2 words that I think are going to guide us as we kind of get into this. What we see is we need to guide it with wisdom. Look, when it's not your stuff, you manage it differently, don't you? When you know it all belongs to Him, okay, I need the wisdom to do a really good job at this. And what reflects the heart of God more than anything else? Generosity. He gives of Himself. He blesses this world, all right? So how do we manage this stuff? It's going to be with wisdom and generosity. So we're going to get kind of practical here in a little bit. I'm going to share some of the things that Lindsay and I have done in our lives to make sure that we're managing what belongs to God. He's entrusted it to us. How do we manage that? With wisdom. I was talking to Lindsay about this, and just so you know, if you don't know Lindsay very well, or you don't know me very well, you realize she's the wise one in our relationship, okay? So most of the time I go, hey, what do you think about this? And then I write it down in sermon notes and I tell you what she says, okay? So that's how, that's like the hidden secret right there. Like we can bypass the middleman, you can just go talk to her. But we were talking about this, she said, we tend to think about money management like a restraint. But really it leads to freedom. Because when you manage your money well, you get to spend it on what matters. If you do this right, it actually leads to freedom to focus on what matters most. So, look, if you were to Google, how do you manage your money? Don't do it right now. But if you were, you would get an endless list of advice. 7 steps to managing your money. 4 tips to mastering your finances. How to manage your money. Here are 19 tips to do it right. Even there's advice on how do you manage money when you don't have any. Believe it or not, that's pretty easy. What do you do with that $10? Hold on to it. You're like, stop. Okay, never mind. So here's what I know. You can look at all these things. There's tons of advice out there. There's tons of wisdom out there. You can do a million things. Without this one thing, none of it will work. You know what it is? We're not short on information, are we? What are we short on? Discipline. Ooh. Discipline. Yeah, talk about words we don't like in church. Discipline's one, We're not short on information. You guys know most of this stuff by heart. What we're short on is the discipline to do it. So here are the things that Lindsay and I kind of work through. Here's the first thing. Create a realistic budget and stick to it. Everybody can do the first part. Most of you like to create a budget based on the income you wish you had. That's not how this works, okay? Some of you are like, man, I'm spending a solid 120% of my budget. That's not how this works, okay? Create a realistic budget and then discipline. Stick to it, okay? Here's how we did this in our house. We have a family meeting. It's getting real. We sit around a table, and every week we come to this meeting and we go, hey, here are the things that are coming up this week. Here are the things that are really important. Here's what we want to try to do. How are we looking with the budget? How are we blah, 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 okay? But here's what convicted me as I was preparing for this, because in case you don't realize, I don't like talking about money. I don't know, I'm not very good with it. And so I'm just like, Lord, I need you to really help. And he convicted me. He said, with this idea of he's the owner, I'm the manager. What if you start your family meetings more with gratitude, just going like, God, I cannot believe that you entrusted this much stuff to us. Man, I got 4 kids. I cannot believe you trusted me with 4 kids. I'm still wondering. I got this house. I cannot believe God entrusted a house to us. I make a paycheck every 2 weeks. I cannot believe that he has blessed us in this. I cannot believe he would trust me with this much. It seems amazing to me. What if that's how you started your budget meeting? Because he's the owner and you're not. You're the manager. All right? So we sit around, and here's how we started our budget. We used the 10-10-80 plan. How many of you have heard about this? Show of hands real quick. 10-10-80 plan. Real quick, here's what this is. 10% goes to God, so you give it back to God. 10% you put in savings, and then you figure out how to live on 80%. Okay? Now, I love how Cam said this. Last week, Cam said, we're not giving this back to God, we're returning it. So you return 10% back to God. On your seat, there's this card right here. Something's got to change. And one of the things on here is this 90-day tithing challenge. So you go ahead and look at this. I know some of you fell asleep anyway, so wake up, look at this card. On here is the 90-day tithing challenge. Here's what we mean. We really believe that if you just put into practice what God instructs, it's going to work out really good for you. You just start walking in his ways. So if you've never tithed in your life, we're saying, hey, try it for 90 days. And if God does not bless you, we'll give you your money back. Now, you have to give in a way that we would know that's how much you gave, okay? Because we don't trust everybody. I mean, look, this room is full with more sinners than out there. So, we're all messed up in here. So, look, give with a check, give online, give in a way that we would know. Try it for 90 days. And listen, pay attention. See if God does not bless your life in some way. Not just financial blessing. We're not saying like you give $5. No. Whoa. We're saying if you submit to God's ways, you get the blessing of God in a lot of different ways, okay? So if you haven't ever tithed, I want you to try it. 90-day tithing challenge, try it. And then 10% goes to savings. Prepare for what's coming. Prepare for emergencies. Prepare for what's coming in your life. And then you figure out how to live on 80%. For some of you, you're like, I don't know. 80% of my income, that's impossible. Well, if this is the first time you're hearing it, I get that, yeah, you're in a hard place. So here's another principle I want you to learn. I want you to figure out how to spend less than you make. Now, I ran through that really fast. I'm going to do it again. I'm sorry. Spend less than you make. This is a tricky one. I get it. But you can say no to things. Does everybody know this? This might be a new thing for you. When somebody comes to you and says, hey, can we buy this? You can say no. Guys, I'm telling you, this is mind-blowing stuff, right? You're like, why is he up there? Yeah, me too. That's what I was wondering. Devote yourself to spending. I remember Lindsay and I, when we first got married, somebody gave us a piece of advice that said, hey, figure out how to live on one income. You know, we were one of those, they call them the dinks, the double income, no kids. You guys, some of you were like, yeah, that's us, we're living it up. Okay, so, but we were challenged like, hey, figure out how to live on one income. And so we actually did. And you know what? It's a lot easier to start that way and grow with it. Because guess what comes? Marriage, kids, moving, changes, emergencies. And if you've been living at 120% of both of your incomes, guess what gets really hard? Everything else gets really hard. And so if you just make a commitment right now, like for those of you, you're single, you just got out of college, or you jumped straight into your career, hold up, listen, go write this thing down, put it on paper, commit to spend less than you make. And then here's the last thing, you've got to deal with your debt. I get that there's some wise debt out there, like if you've got a housing payment, I get those things, but there's a lot of debt that's just dumb. We can say that, right? So deal with your dumb debt. What that means is you're not putting 10% away for savings. You know what you're doing? You're aggressively getting rid of debt because you can't save or prepare for anything if you're, bound by these chains of debt. You got to figure out how to get rid of this stuff. So this is all part of creating a realistic budget and then the discipline to just stick with it. Here's another thing I want you to think about. I want you to plan to live generously. Remember, God is a generous God. It all belongs to Him. So we're trying to manage it the way that He would. And so I think that means to plan to live generously. Look at this verse. These are 2 verses from Proverbs 11. If you're doing the read a proverb a day thing, we just read through this. One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly and comes to poverty. How does that make sense? It doesn't, just in case you were wondering. This is God math. This is more confusing than the math that our kids are doing now. Like this is somehow by giving freely, you gain. And somehow by withholding, having a greedy eye, trying to self-preservation is your survival mode, somehow that becomes to poverty. Look at this. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. There's something about living generously that kind of you're walking in the way of God, and He's just kind of taking care of you in a really special way. He just kind of is stepping in a really special way. So I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to actually grow in your ability to be more generous year after year. I want you to find out what is 1% this year, 1% more generous this year than you were last year. For my wife and I, as we did this budget, we would inevitably run into situations where we want to help somebody, but we couldn't because the budget didn't allow for it. We didn't have any money available. So you know what we did? We wrote this into the budget. We said, let's just put a little bit aside every week so that this little pool can grow so that when a need arises, when somebody shows up, if something happens, we could say yes to being generous. And it is awesome. You have to say no to some things. But listen, what if we just committed to, like, I'm going to plan to become more generous? And I want you to think about being generous to three groups of people. Generous to your family, to your church, to your neighbor. And again, the qualifier on generosity is this. Are we talking about an earthly investment or a heavenly one? Are we talking about his kingdom or are we talking about my kingdom? Okay? That's the qualifier for generosity. So be generous to your family. Man, pour into your family. Let them know that you love them. Let them know that you're going to fight for them. You're going to invest in them in a way that's going to set them up for the future. You're going to invest in them so that when they think about their family, they're going to think that, man, my family loves me. I cannot wait to build a family like the family I came from. Do whatever it takes to invest generously in your family. Not building your kingdom, remember, because too many people say things like, hey, I'm doing this for the kids, and it's not. You're doing it for you. So you got to be honest with some of these things. But be generous to your family. Raise them up in the kingdom, man, and let them go and see what happens. Invest in your church. There are a lot of opportunities to give in our world. Or you can give to McDonald's to help fight hunger, which doesn't make sense. But yeah, like you can give to all kinds of things. Has anybody ever actually called McDonald's and said, hey, I just gave $1. Can you tell me where it went? Has anybody ever done that? Listen, at the church, you could call the church and go, hey, what are we doing? And we could show you, here's what your dollars are doing. So for me, I'm like, look, invest in something that you know is going to make an impact. Invest in something that you know is going to leave like a legacy of something that points to his kingdom. It's good for them. So invest in your family, invest in your church, and be generous to your neighbor. God put you right where you are on purpose. He put you in your job on purpose. He put you on that street. He put you with that roommate. He put you at that place on purpose for this reason. If you're a follower of Jesus, so that whoever encounters you experiences the love of the Father. That's what he put you there for. So be generous to your neighbor because you're the one that helps them see Jesus. Everything else is secondary. Everything else kind of falls after that. So again, the qualifier is this an earthly investment or a heavenly one? Let's wrap this thing up. Here's the last thing. Seek godly, wise counsel. This can be your homework today. I want you to text or call 3 or 4 people in your life that you say they're wise, they're good with their money, they know what they're doing. I want you to just call them and go, hey, what's the wisest piece of advice that you ever got? I called a few people, I texted a few people. Here's some things they said. They said, it's unwise to become house poor because you're comparing yourself to other people. If you don't have wise counsel in your life, you're going to get caught up in the wrong thing. You're going to see the wrong way. It's unwise. Don't invest in money. Don't invest your money in areas that could lose money. Invest in areas that are going to gain for the long term. Wise people they make interest, they don't pay interest. If you don't have wise people in your life helping you see these things, you're taking the script from our culture and going like, well, it seems successful on Instagram. Yeah, okay. If you don't have somebody in your life like this, here's what I want to encourage you to do. Take Financial Peace University. How many of you have been through this here at the church? Just real quick. Okay, for the rest of you who have not taken this yet, I want to challenge you to do this. If you are young and you're still like high school age, you're college age, single, you're a newly married couple, take Financial Peace. We got a class starting January 29th here at the Henderson campus. If we need to start more, we will start more. Because here's the thing, if you start this in your life, if you just start listening to the wisdom that comes from this and living it out, and I get not everybody loves Dave Ramsey, frankly, I don't care. What I care about is you're managing God's stuff. Start doing it better. Be wise with it. Be generous with it. Be aiming at his kingdom. And so if you don't have a good starting point, man, start here. Even if you disagree, start living these things out and begin to experience what it feels like to manage his stuff with wisdom. Listen, again, if you're young, if you're single, and you're starting to figure this thing out, guess what you have on your side? Time. The rest of us are like, on our heels trying to catch up. But you can implement these things in your life right now, and it'll make a huge difference in your world. So step into it. Sign up. You can, on the app right now or on the website, sign up. Dave Ramsey has online classes. You can sign up through them as well. If you're at a campus, there are different classes that you can participate in. But just take these steps. Now, we talked a lot about this. I want to hit pause for a second and shift gears, okay? You know, when we talk about God, we talk about money, for a lot of us, that makes us really tense. Because we think, all right, God's the master, okay, here are all the things that I'm not good at, and so, yeah, thanks a lot, appreciate that. God's in charge, so sometimes we can look at God like he's this dictator who's like far off. He's giving you a bunch of rules, and you're not good at following the rules, so you're a bad person. And can I just, let's hit pause on this for a second. Jesus thinks about God as a loving father. When he wants you to think about God, he wants you to think about him like a loving father. Now, some of us in this room didn't have loving fathers. So this is foreign. That there would be somebody who's powerful, that is for me, somebody that's capable, that has my best interest in mind, someone who's going to fight for me, someone who's going to work for good instead of selfish gain at my cost. Some of us, we don't get this. This is foreign. But Jesus wants you to know, the God who says, look, you can't serve God and money. The one who says, hey, you got to do it my way. He's not saying it from the perspective of a dictator. He's saying it from the perspective of a father going like, man, I've got good in mind for you. If you'll just trust me. This is why a little bit later in his sermon, Jesus says this. Stop worrying. If your eye is on earthly stuff, you're going to worry about these things. What you're going to eat, what you're going to drink, what you're going to wear. He says, stop worrying about those things. Pagans run after these things. I love it. But your heavenly Father knows that you need them. You've got an entirely capable Father. Knows that you need these things. He knows you need the things you worry about. So his best advice for you is seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Seek this first. His ways. Righteousness means the ways that are right according to his kingdom. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And then look at this. All these things will be added. All the things that you're worrying about, all the things that you're fighting for, all the things that you just kind of wake up in the middle of the night stressed and anxious about. He says, I'll take care of those. You take care of this first part. You see, when you trust the Father as the owner and as the master instead of money, it means that he bears the responsibility of taking care of you. That'd be really nice for some of us to know, right? That God has taken responsibility of caring for my needs. That means that when we trust him, we can rest in his sovereignty. That's a good place to be. So let's do that. Something's got to change. Maybe this is it. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your grace. Thank you for your love for us, how you take care of us. You tend to our needs. You meet us right where we're at. God, we're so thankful. I get that some of us in this room, this is a big challenge. Some of the things we talked about, how to manage money with wisdom, we've been doing it wrong so long. We feel like it's impossible. Just remind us right now that nothing's impossible with you. There's nothing too big for you. There are lies that we buy into. Just, Lord, help us get those lies out of our mind. Replace them with your truth and your goodness. Lord, help us to to have a bigger perspective of how to manage money that is way bigger than managing it for us, but we're managing it as part of your kingdom. We love you, Jesus. We're thankful for your grace. Amen.
Thanks for watching Compassion Online. We'd love to invite you to join us for our live services with worship, prayer partners, and more. For exclusive online content, head to live.compassionchristian.com to join our community. And if you liked this sermon, well, you should check out the rest of the messages from this series in the playlist to the left. Also, click over here if you want to subscribe to see more videos like this one. We'd love to connect with you. Just head to compassionchristian.com/connect, and I'll reach out to you soon.